Good afternoon, members of Parliament, support staff, radio listeners, TV viewers, those following via social media, and members of the media. Welcome to the continuation of the Committee for Agriculture, Fisheries, and Animal Husbandry, meeting number 2 today, February, May 9th, 2025. I would like to give a special welcome to the Honorable Minister of Tourism, Economic Affairs, Transport, and Telecommunications, Ms. Grisha Heiliger-Martin, and her support staff. We have established a quorum of 3 factions. Please stand for a moment of silence. Thank you. I have received notice of absence from the following committee members: MP Roseberg. Are there any notifications at this time from the members of Parliament? I see none. The agenda point for this committee meeting is as follows: an update by the Minister of Tourism, Economic Affairs, Transport, and Telecommunication regarding agriculture on St. Maarten. It is good to note that today's meeting is a continuation of the meeting which was adjourned on May 5th, 2025, during which agenda point 1 was closed. At the handling of agenda point 2, the Minister of TIAT, Ms. Grisha Heiliger-Martin, gave a presentation, and members of Parliament were given an opportunity to pose questions to the Minister. The meeting was then adjourned to allow the Minister time to prepare the answers to the questions posed by the members of Parliament. At this time, I give the floor to the Minister of Tourism, Economic Affairs, Transport, and Telecommunication, Ms. Grisha Heiliger-Martin, to answer the questions posed by the members of Parliament during the meeting of May 5th, 2025. Minister, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon to you. Good afternoon to the Secretary General. Good afternoon to the honorable members of Parliament, those listening and viewing online. A pleasant good afternoon. Mr. Chairman, thank you once again for the opportunity to address this honorable House. While I recognize that scrutiny and doubt has come from a few, I also acknowledge with appreciation that support for this ministry's vision and work has been expressed by a majority. I take in both good faith because accountability and collaboration must coexist in service and to our country. So as I present today's responses, I kindly ask all members of Parliament to give their full attention to the information being shared. These answers are grounded in our ongoing effort and reflect the realities of what is needed to advance this ministry or this industry. It is my sincere hope that they provide clarity not only on the questions already posed, but on others that may still linger. But above all, focus and respect are essential to ensure that these contributions are truly heard and not simply rehearsed. This moment is not about defending the past, it is about presenting the future and the foundation we are building through the RA effect, or the R4 effect. In 2025, the Ministry of TIAT is focused on reshaping our priorities, reforming outdated systems, and rebuilding our approach to governance with accountability at the core. Our mandate is clear: to restructure policies that respond to the evolving needs of our people and our economy. And through these decisive actions, we aim not only to improve the process, but also to rebuild trust and reshape service delivery in a way that ensures meaningful, sustainable growth. We entered this fiscal year with both eyes fixed on 2026, not as a distant promise, but as a tangible opportunity to see real change. Budget 2025 as previously outlined, was never about doing everything all at once. It was about doing the right things first, restructuring outdated systems, revising policy frameworks, and revitalizing sectors that for far too long has been under leverage. The R4 effect remains at the heart of this transformation, and it is not a slogan, but a strategy. And while some results will take time to fully materialize, the groundwork is being laid with deliberate focus. In agriculture, for instance, our responses today reflect the need to align expectations with practical constraints. whether infrastructural legislation or budgetary. However, they also reflect a readiness to make the shift from project-based intent to policy backed by action. That pivot takes coordination, it takes consensus, it takes continuity, and all of which this ministry is committed to ensuring. So I ask that we measure progress not solely by repetition of information, but by the resolve behind it. What was once stated as an intent is now being operationalized as action, and what remains to be done will benefit this body's continued oversight, support, and collaboration. So let 2025 be the year we stabilize so that 2026 can be the year we scale. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I will now proceed with and provide the responses to the questions posed by the members of Parliament. First question was posed by MP Sarah Wescott-Williams. MP Wescott-Williams had 17 questions and mainly focused around project execution, planning, institutional and legal structure, policy, trade, and sectoral challenges. First question posed by MP Wescott-Williams, excuse me. Are there any other immediate executable projects from 2025, and what are they? Yes, several ALF-related projects are executable in 2025, as outlined in the presentation. Food and data qualification project to be completed by June 2025. The poultry and fishery sector assessment, which is ongoing. The hydroponics education program installations and initial training completed in April 2025. And a community training is to follow in 2026. An agri-loan program to be launched in June 2025. And an agriculture research project currently in the selection phase. These initiatives support both the short and long-term goals for strengthening agriculture. What is the country package financing in regard to the ALF? So country package funds support several ALF initiatives, the agricultural research, which includes a pilot project and feasibility study on farmer performance and water quality, web portal development for agri-sector data access, agri-loan, 2% interest loans from 5,000 to 50,000 for 10 farmers and 10 fishermen via credits, and 3 training sessions, maximum 25 participants each. And that's it. That's what it covers. And the next question is the mission to the Dominican Republic. What's in it for St. Maarten? The Agroalimentaria 2025 Trade Fairs, which is slated for May 28th to the 31st, offers a platform to explore partnership and suppliers in produce, agribusiness, and more. With global trade and tariff shifts affecting prices, these missions help local businesses find cost-effective alternative, potentially stabilizing prices for residents and visitors. Next question. Any other discussion regarding the invasive species control? They need to be given attention and not left up to the ministry under which it may fall. So although there has been no formal recent discussion, the ministry remains engaged. So 100,000 guilders was allocated to the Nature Foundation in 2022. Budget constraints limit further support, but invasive species control remain a priority and will be addressed more comprehensively through the ALF agency alongside regional cooperation and external funding opportunities. Can the minister give further thoughts to water harvesting, and what can we do to harvest this water for more use? Can the matter of tax incentives also be looked into in this regard? Yes, water harvesting is critical for the climate resilience, reducing utility costs, and supporting agriculture. So the ministry is indeed exploring a tax incentive with the Ministry of Finance for systems that collect rainwater. In addition, a study is underway to assess the feasibility of using the well for farming, aligning with ALF priorities to address water as a costly input. Can the minister develop a reporting mechanism as steps to be taken up? The MP would like to see through you, Mr. Chairman, what the priorities are in light of what was presented. Yes, for sure. A reporting framework will be introduced in the upcoming governing program presentation that we'll be doing in Parliament. The ministry also plans to implement a quarterly update mechanism to provide Parliament with regular transparent progress reports on priorities and implementation. Next question, what lessons has been learned from the imports from DR? For example, have we learned anything from the challenges that the groups at the time faced? So a pilot project by the Consumer Coalition proved that a high quality, affordable produce can be imported from the DR. The only challenges they faced was finding a reliable supplier. So finding a reliable supplier to source upgraded food. It took them some time, but they did. And despite that, another setback they had is they wanted to extend this. It was a 4-month project where they brought in a 40-foot container every 2 weeks. Very successful, just a pilot project to prove that it can be done. And it was not about making any kind of a profit. It was just at cost selling the produce. And they were selling the produce, as from what I recall after speaking to Mr. Yeseroen, they were selling it at 40 to 50% less than the major supermarkets. And the only issue that they faced in the end was, of course, support, because it was just volunteers and it was just a pilot project to prove that it can be done. So that's it. That's what I gathered from the Consumer Coalition. Next question, increased price control given the tariffs. Any attention to be paid to the price control? The ministry is monitoring global tariffs impact, especially from the U.S. St. Maarten's price ordinance allows for limited price setting, but the expansion would require legal and interministerial coordination. Department of IETA continues price inspections and enforcement, while the ministry assesses the need for new consumer protection tools or stabilization measures. Cooperation between 6 Dutch islands in terms of the agreement. What's the status there? So DC Alpha functions as a collaborative platform amongst the 6 islands with regular biweekly meetings. It supports knowledge sharing, regular trade research, and policy alignment. Future goals include synchronized regulation, school gardens, and improved data sharing. What is that very small amount budget in 2025 going towards? That limited 2025 budget is supporting schools that are participating in the hydroponics train-the-trainer program, specifically for materials and growing seedlings. Are there any other executable projects in 2025 we could that could execute, and if so, what are the projects? Given the current capacity and the existing project load, the ministry does not plan to add any future ALF-related projects in 2025. What are the projects for 2026? So the planned projects for 2026, agri-loans and training continuation, the seedling center development, agriculture research completion, the formal establishment, of course, of the ALF agency, poultry farming training, which is still subject to budget, continuation of hydroponics initiatives, revival of agri-schools with ECYS collaboration, and setting up fisheries committee and defining roles. What is taking place with regards to the cooperation between the agreements between the 6 islands? So the DC Alpha groups usually meets on bi-weekly to align goals and support individual ALF department and drive collaboration projects across the 6 islands. Any steps taken based on the study that was recently done? In the 2024 agriculture study is a foundational document for sector development. It provides insight and guides planning, particularly for future projects under the ALF framework pending available funding. What will and can be the outcome of the reestablishment of the Fisheries Committee? The outcome includes improved data collection, stronger policy advice, coordinated in the interdepartmental action, and enhanced stakeholder engagement, and all supporting long-term sustainable fisheries management. What can key outcomes be from the potential delegation trip for DR? So the outcome includes identifying trade partners, including Sint Maarten's agricultural priority, introducing Sint Maarten's agricultural priorities, developing a long-term cooperation to support food security, training, and access to affordable agriculture project. And the final question posed by MP Wescott, ZBO is a choice of a legal entity for the ALF agency. Provide more elaboration. And I will provide it even more further in the questions posed by more members of parliament. So briefly, establishing the ALF agency as a ZBO ensures greater flexibility, operational focus, and accountability. It enables quicker responses to market conditions and allows investment of generated funds into sector growth while maintaining policy oversight by government. Next, we will move on to questions posed by MP Francisco La Cruz. MP La Cruz had 5 questions, and they focused on regional collaboration, resource sharing, policy development and legislation, planning, and land use for agriculture. First question, MP said that he missed the collaboration or mention of any collaboration between or that involves Statia and Sabre, probably getting a list of what's produced on these islands. The ministry actively engaged, as mentioned before, in bi-weekly meetings with DC Alpha platform, which includes representatives from all former Netherlands Antilles territories, including Statia and Sabre. These collaborations remain ongoing, and notably, the most recent DC Alpha meeting was held in Statia, where we observed a variety of local produce such as cucumbers, string beans, watermelons, fish, lobsters, and conchs. These inter-island engagements continue to inform our strategies for regional cooperation, trade facilitation, knowledge exchange, and agricultural development. The MP made reference to the Groeifonds, but mentioned that the Groeifonds no longer exists. Indeed, that is correct, MP. Through you, Mr. Chairman, the Groeifond program is no longer active. The Netherlands is currently working on the development of a new funding mechanism, which is expected to be publicly announced around September of this year, and remain attentive to these developments and will assess the opportunities for Sint Maarten as details become available. Next question we have, are we having any discussions being held regarding shipping? Yes, discussions regarding inter-island shipping actually are actively taking place through the DC Alpha platform. The ministry has acknowledged that limited and costly transportation operations are significant barriers to effective regional trade and agricultural collaboration. So addressing these issues is a priority, and ongoing efforts aim to identify viable, cost-effective shipping solutions to improve the movement of goods, particularly fresh produce, among the islands. Next question, Parliament would like to receive a timeline regarding the ALF planning, and as already mentioned, to the response to MP Wescott-Williams, a detailed timeline will be shared once the comprehensive agricultural land use framework is, once the ALF is, overview is finalized. And the CAFAH platform was, actually this CAFAH platform, it was specifically created to support this type of coordination, this type of transparency and accountability in this process. So Parliament will continue to receive structural updates through CAFAH as progress is made and implemented. So, and then the final question by MP La Cruz is businesses that are willing to give back land for agriculture purpose. What is the update with this? In the first quarter of this year, the ministry submitted a formal request to the Ministry of Rami for an overview of government-owned land suitable for agricultural use. So regarding the return of land from private businesses for agricultural purposes, and this matter is currently being handled by the Ministry of Rami, and we await further updates, and we will share relevant developments as they arise. Next, we have questions posed by MP Veronica Jansen. MP Jansen asked about 4 questions, which focused on land access and modern farming, infrastructure and agriculture development, food security, and regional trade. First question, can you repeat the land access program for the farmers? So at present, there was actually no mention of a formal land access program for farmers. But I think I may have clarified that. I think maybe the MP may have, if I'm through you, Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure if the MP is referring to what MP La Cruz stated, so maybe she can clarify that, but maybe when after I answer the question, she can clarify a little bit what she meant by the land access. And then next question, is water well being annexed in Saker's Gut? Yes, after speaking with the Vrami Ministry, indeed, the matter is currently being addressed by the Ministry of Vrami, and they are well aware of that. The MP would like to know more about how and what TIAT will do concretely to take care of food security by working with these countries mentioned, and what is going to be concretely looked at in these countries. See, the objectives with these countries the objectives of engaging with these countries is to introduce St. Maarten's agricultural needs and priorities to key stakeholders with the aim of strengthening food security. So this involves identifying reliable partners, understanding what products and services are available, establishing long-term partnership that supports the training, regional agricultural cooperation, and we are currently in the assessment and relationship building phase actually with all these countries. And last question is, are there any different shipping routes from Colombia, Panama to St. Maarten? No, through you, Mr. Chairman, there are currently no direct shipping routes between Colombia and Panama at this time.
Excuse me, Minister.
Yes?
I would like to allow MP
Sure.
Webster to give a little clarification on her question so it could be adequately answered. So give this floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon. Good afternoon to the Minister and my colleagues. The question was based on one of the slides that was submitted, and the heading was projects, and then the first project was land. So land for agriculture. And that is why I asked what exactly is meant there and what is in the land program for local agriculturalists.
Thank you, MP. Minister, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, MP, for the clarification. It's exactly what I assumed. So yes, we are, as mentioned to the response that I provided, MP La Cruz, we are looking into finding out if owners of properties are willing to give up land for agriculture. Of course, we will have to, of course, that also will be supported with policy. So we just wanted to have a bird's eye view because we are hearing that there are people are wanting to do that. So where we started with Vrami first, where that is concerned. So if that's clear to you, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to now move over to MP Darrell York's, I can't read it. That's why I keep looking. No, MP Darrell York's questions. MP York asked about 14 questions. And they are focused on budget funding and financial planning, policy foundation and project transparency, resilience, land use, and consumer protection. First question, where does the basis of the plans come from? As mentioned during my presentation, the early parts of my presentation, the majority of our efforts in agriculture, livestock, and fisheries are guided, exactly the words I use, guided by the ALF agency approved in 2022. This policy serves as our strategic roadmap for sustainable sector. I also mentioned that as we go along, this policy will get updated as we evolve. But this is the essence of what we're using to guide us. Next question, reference to the policy. So reference to the policy, has the baseline study been done? Yes, a baseline study was conducted in 2023 and finalized in 2024, and this study was officially shared with Parliament during the October 2024 session forms, and the an analytical basis for this several planned intervention. I'd like to maybe at the end of the meeting confirm with Parliament if they received it, so that the MP could maybe get it so that he can review it. Next, we don't have the underlying data to justify the numbers of the policy. So this is MP's statement, and I want to take some time and clarify through you, Mr. Chairman, that the ALF policy was developed especially, so where do we get the data? I think the MP wanted to know, like, so where are we getting the data to do all of this? So allow me to just clarify how the ALF policy was developed, especially in response to the concern regarding to the policy's data foundation. The policy was drafted in 2022 by the ETT department, policy department, under the previous administration, guided by a trained economist and reviewed by an agricultural expert affiliated with UNDP in Trinidad. Before drafting, existing stakeholder consultations were held with farmers, agriculturalists, the Home Growers Association, and market vendors. Their input played a crucial role in shaping the direction and assumption within the policy. That said, I have previously acknowledged that while the ALF policy provides a solid foundation, it is not yet comprehensive. I mentioned that earlier in one or two of my statements in Parliament, whether on this side or that side, but I recall saying that. It is considered a living document for us, and we fully intend to amend and enhance it as the ALF agency develops, more data becomes available. So lastly, I must note that this process has been driven by dedicated civil servants and experts who should be commended and not undermined for their commitment to national development and food security. Next, where is the money coming from? Based on the projection of the 1.5 million guilders in the policy for the department, execution is not reflected. Where will the money be allocated from? The projected 1.5 million guilders was based on the potential of the reallocation of existing staff and resources within the Ministry of TIAT to the new ALF agency. This approach was part of the broader restructuring discussion under the previous administration. But since the policy's publication in 2023, we have faced several budgetary challenges, as everyone knows, and consequently, we are exploring local reallocation, international partnership, and donor support. So we're also working on identifying revenue-generating mechanism to ensure the long-term sustainability of the agency. So these efforts are currently under review and development. Next. In the upcoming budget, what has TIAT done to create additional funds to be able to allocate funds to ALF? Are there any revenue-generating measures? Yes, the TIAT Ministry is currently exploring revenue-generating measures, and we anticipate will allow for a modest increase in the agriculture budget for 2026. How does the creation of the ALF agency coincide with the current work responsibility of TIAT? So currently, agricultural responsibility lie within two units in TIAT: the policy department, which is the policy development, and which is ETT, yes, and the inspection department, which is the executional body. However, these departments are severely understaffed, with only one person dedicated full-time to agriculture. The ALF agency is intended to complement TIAT by taking over full operational responsibility for ALF sectors. TIAT will retain strategic oversight, while the agency will lead on ground implementation and sector development. Can we get a more detailed budget for the ALF agency? We are actively in discussions with the World Bank, TWO programs regarding startup fundings for the ALF agency. The proposed budget includes costs for legislation and policy development, setup and operational expenses, infrastructure and staffing, farmer training and capacity building, public awareness initiative, and we will share the details of these figures once negotiations are final. Can you provide concrete status of projects today? Yes, as noticed previously to MP Wescott-Williams, the following ALF-related projects are slated for execution in 2025. Food data quantification projects, poultry and fishery sector assessment, hydroponic education programs, agri-loan program, agricultural research project. Next, ALF agency. How does the creation of the ALF agency coincide with Ministry of TIAT's mandate as it relates to controls? This is similar to the previous question, but in short, the ALF agency is being designed to carry out the day-to-day functions of technical control, while TIAT will remain high-level policy leadership. This approach addresses current staffing and limitations and improve efficiency. Plans alluded to need concrete timelines on where they are today. As previously mentioned and stated in response to both MP Wescott-Williams and MP La Cruz, detailed timelines will be provided once a comprehensive ALF planning overview is finalized. So this is the exact reason the CAFAH platform was established, to provide structural updates and ensure Parliament is kept informed and implementation progresses. Natural disaster measures, are there any? At this time, there are no concrete disaster preparedness measures directly linked to the ALF policy. However, the ministry acknowledges the need for climate resilience to be integrated into future updates. What kind of funds would be needed to realize these plans? Most of the projects and plans highlighted are currently being financed through international support, primarily from the Netherlands and the EU. Until the local ALF budget is significantly increased, they will remain our primary funding pathway. Consumer protection document, land use policy specifically for agriculture. How is the allocation of land for agriculture going to be done, taking competing sectors into consideration? At present, we do not have a dedicated consumer protection policy or law. However, we are exploring collaborations with Curaçao to assist in the development of this framework, as they do have one. And as for the agricultural land allocation, the ministry has formally requested an overview, I stated before, from VRAMI on available government-owned land, and this data will help guide allocation in a way that balances the needs for various sectors. And I think the final question by MP York, what kind of funds would be needed to realize plans for agriculture? The ALF policy estimates an initial setup of 1.5 million guilders for the department. However, given our shift towards establishing an independent ALF agency, we are assessing this figure. The total cost of establishing and operationalizing the agency will be communicated once a review is completed. Then we have questions posed by MP Irion. MP Irion asked 28 questions, and these questions focused on budget funding, financial planning, inflation, price control, economic impact, agriculture, and infrastructure. First question: what has been executed since the publication of the ALF? Since the publication of the ALF policy was launched, the ministry has conducted a baseline study, as mentioned before, to 3 or 4 MPs, conducted a baseline study on the agricultural sector, developed a draft policy on poultry farming standards, launched the hydroponics trainer program in 9 schools, 7 primary, 2 secondary, advanced regional knowledge partnership, including the IICA and FAO and the CARDI, which is CARDI, initiated planning for the well water quality research project starting in June. supported farmers via market access programs like Go Local and farmer markets. What ALF-related initiatives are slated for execution in 2025? As mentioned before, I'll repeat it again. The following projects are planned for 2025. Food data qualification project, poultry and fisheries sector assessments, hydroponic education expansion, agri-loan program, agri-research project. Is the ministry going to ensure budget amendments to support ALF? Yes, a comprehensive review of the current budget is ongoing, and necessary amendments will be proposed to ensure continued support. Meeting regarding tariff. What is the current CPI and inflation rate? As of the latest update, the consumer price index, which stands at 118.91, reflecting an increase of 4.12 points from Q4. So, which was 114.79. The annual inflation rate for 2024 is approximately 3.61%. Due to technical delays, Q1 inflation rate could not be provided at this time, but is expected to be announced within the next 2 weeks. And we're currently also assessing whether recent tariff changes have contributed to price increase, and will share our findings once the evaluation is completed. Where is the minister getting the price data in absence of ASECUDA? We currently rely on direct input from stakeholders, including importers, wholesalers, and retailers, and this approach ensures real-time market insights until ASECUDA is operational. Where is the ministry with ASECUDA implementation? Through you, Mr. Chairman, ASECUDA falls under the Ministry of Justice, and its implementation is slated for 2025, pending the final budget approval. Upon approval, procurement and staff training will commence for full rollout hopefully within this year. Will the Agriculture Department become obsolete once the agency is created? No, the department will remain a key stakeholder in the ALF execution, and it will work in tandem with the agency to ensure seamless policy implementation and continuity of services. Our agency's plans included in the current budget. Agency establishment costs are being discussed with TWU. While not yet in 2026 budget, efforts are ongoing to secure funds. Any required budget amendment will be submitted to Parliament upon finalization. Is the agency currently budgeted for 2026? What's the ministry's interim plan? The agency is not yet included in the 2026 budget. However, we aim to increase ALF-related budget lines for ongoing initiatives, and in the interim, the ministry continues to manage executions under existing structures. Timeline for setting up the ALF agency. An estimate of 18 to 24 months is targeting operational readiness for Q4 2026 or Q1 2027, pending the legislation and the budgetary approvals. What interim steps will the ministry take before the ZBO is in place? The ministry is seeking both local and international support to lay the groundwork for the agencies. This includes pre-legislative work, stakeholder engagement, and pilot initiatives. Backyard farming, did it peak between 2020 and 2021? Interest surged during COVID-19 and remains steady. Many hobbyists continued farming and selling produce via informal markets. We monitor developments and provide support through programs and events. So we've seen it a little, it's been very vague the last couple months, you could say. Wells, can they be cleaned before hurricane season? Unfortunately, not before this hurricane season. The water well research project begins in June 2025 to assess quality and potential use of the registered farmers. Tariffs, price increase on old stock. Any controls in the place? Okay. While no regulations currently prohibit price increase on existing stocks, the inspectorate monitors for misleading prices, so consumers may report concerns to the inspectorate department. How is inflation affecting prices under the agriculture program? We're actively assessing the inflationary impact on agriculture-related goods and will share details findings upon completion of the assessment. Has the inspectorate taken action on price complaints? Do they have any proper tools? Yes, the inspectorate department investigates price-related complaints. However, resource gaps exist, so a mid-year budget amendment will address equipment upgrades and digital tools to strengthen enforcement. Why seek funding from TEREO instead of securing funds locally for the agency? TEREO's funding is specifically earmarked for structural reforms like the ALF agencies, so it aligns with E6 goals under the country package and provides vital capacity support. Why depend on why depend on TEREO? Why depend on TEREO if the agency is essential and 2025 funding is on hold? 2025 TEREO funds remain unused only due to pending national budget ratification. So TIAD values the partnership and the TWO shares our commitment to food security and sustainability. Is backyard farming increasing again? While other growth is stable, sustainable interest remains. So agriculture science, strong performance at the CSE level suggests rising youth engagement, which could drive future growth. So we are seeing it increasing more among the youths through these projects. What is being done about invasive species? Though not a primarily threat to agriculture, I think I answered earlier extensively on this, but I also wanted to note that though not a primary threat to agriculture, invasive species are monitored. We spent about 1,000 guilders to the Nature Foundation in 2022. In 2022? Oh, sorry, 100,000, sorry. You know, it's Friday. Future action will be supported via ALF agency and potential regional partnerships. So right now, there's no funding for that. I think I mentioned that earlier, and just wanted to mention the past, what we did, but we are focused on getting support to focus on this. Why I mentioned that it's not really a threat because St. Kitts has it 10 times worse than St. Maarten. But they are flourishing big time when it comes to agriculture. So there are ways and means around it, and we'll just have to learn from them. And finally, when we have financial support, we can take care of the invasive species. What's being done about water well cleanup? This is also part of the TEREO funded research initiative starting June 2025. The goal is to assess the viability of using these wells to supply water to registered local farmers. Are price control checks ongoing, and how can the public file complaints? Yes. The Inspectorate of Economic and Transport, IETA, enforces pricing transparency. Complaints can be submitted via email at ieta@stmartengov.org, or you can call 542-3182, or we can walk in at our office on Canagita Street, number 15, third floor of the BTP building. So we welcome walk-ins. Calls are 542-3182, or email ieta@stmartengov.org. Is the government considering social programs in light of the inflation? Social programs development is under the Ministry of VSA. TIAT remains focused on economic stabilization, production support, and cost reduction while coordinating closely with VSA to align broader socio-economic efforts. Does the inspectorate have tools to enforce against price gouging? While no formal price gouging laws exist, IETA is authorized to act on deceptive pricing practices. Equipment and staffing limitation exists, but are being addressed through the ministry's modernization mid-year budget plans. What is the official stats website and its update status? The official website is stats.stmartingov.org. That's stats, S-T-A-T-S, .stmartingov.org. It is up to date through Q4 2024. Q5 2025 data is expected to be posted within the next 2 weeks following Q1 of 2025 data is expected to be posted within the next 2 weeks because of, which was a little setback due to some technical issues. Was a business case completed for the ALF, and can MPs receive a copy? No MP, through you, Mr. Chairman, no formal business case has been completed to date. However, one is being developed as part of the proposed TWO project supporting ALF agency establishment. What strategies are in place to minimize rising housing prices? This matter falls under the jurisdiction of the Ministry of RUMI. What short and long-term strategies, final questions, are being considered to address rising prices? Short-term, to promote local production, reduce business costs, and stimulate tourism investment. And long-term, strengthen food security, modernize supply chains, and support sustainable economic growth to ease inflationary pressures. Then we go on to the questions posed by MP Christopher Waver, 6 questions. And these questions are focused on local agricultural capacity and strategy and collaboration and feedback. First question, is there enough produce available on St. Maarten? Yes, through you, Mr. Chairman, there is a relatively amount of produce on the island to meet a portion of the local demand. However, to ensure consistent supply and reduce dependency on imports, increased production and distribution supports are still needed. What is the vision of the local farmers? Based on the consultations, local farmers envision a significant increase in local supply of freshly grown food, the establishment of a dedicated marketplace for local producers, access to affordable and reliable water for irrigation, and this vision aligns with national goals of food security and economic self-sufficiency. Has there been a meeting as to what the general strategy is? Yes, multiple meetings has been held with local farmers whose voice concerns and shares their strategic outlook. These inputs are guiding the development of the agricultural, of the ALF agency and related policies. What do we want to produce on St. Maarten? St. Maarten's aims to collaborate with farmers to cultivate high-demand, short-cycle crops that promote food security and reduce imports, and these may include leafy greens such as lettuce, arugula, and spinach, culinary herbs, which is like basil, parsley, thyme, and I'm sure there's a few more, vegetables like peppers, cucumbers, tomatoes, cabbage, root crops like sweet potatoes, cassava, maybe even potatoes. Livestock like eggs and poultry are part of the livestock strategy, and the focus is on crops suitable to the local climate and feasible for small-scale and hydroponic production. Were meetings held with supermarkets, and what has their feedback been? Yes, meetings were held with major wholesalers and supermarkets representative throughout this term. The ministry, in partnership with the Chamber of Commerce, is now engaging smaller supermarkets very soon, very soon, and neighborhood grocers. These discussions are part of an ongoing farm to supermarket pilot initiative to integrate local produce into retail supply chains, and a few more discussions, but we'll hear from that about that in the not so Very close, very soon. Final question posed by MP Waiver. What is the vision from the local supermarkets? So from what we captured during the baseline study consultation, local supermarkets share visions that includes a stable supply of fresh local grown food, the creation of a dedicated local produce marketplace, improve access to affordable irrigation and farm infrastructure, and their supports reflects growing interest in sourcing more produce from within the island. And I think the final MP is MP Shamira Roseberg. MP Roseberg asked about 8 questions focused on ZBO structure and agency, agriculture and school programs, and additional funding options. First question, what is the reason for that a ZBO structure was chosen? A ZBO structure was selected for the following reasons: operational independence, specialization, efficiency and flexibility, legal and regulatory compliance, public trust, and accountability. This model allows for more effective policy implementation outside the constraints of traditional government bureaucracy, particularly given current personnel limitations. While the ZBO will remain under the government financial oversight and reporting, it will enable a focused and agile approach aligned with ALF's policy and startup budget, helping to bring the initiative to full capacity without internal delays. What's the timeline for setting up the structure? Again, the estimated support setup timeline is about 2 years, so about 2 years, with a goal to have the ZBO operational by Q4, December 2026. Has the process to set up the agency already started? Yes, most definitely. Initial steps have begun. Although funding is not yet secured, the foundational process has started based on the ALF policy framework. These include internal consultation and submission of necessary documentation to seek support from the Netherlands through TWO. Despite challenges, we are committed to continuing the groundwork. Next question, what is the current priority and the current available budget and connected timeline? As I previously mentioned through a response to MP Wescott-Williams, the 2025 budget is currently supporting the schools that participate in the hydroponics train-the-trainer program, specifically for acquiring seedling materials. Additionally, the Department of ETT, the Policy Department, is prioritizing interministerial coordination to align existing efforts and address bottlenecks. And this will position the ministry to implement broader plans effectively once more funding becomes available. So efforts are also ongoing to explore international funding avenues and support stakeholders in accessing them. Will other schools be joining? At present, no additional schools have expressed interest in joining the program. Due to the reduced agricultural subsidy budget for 2025, the Department of ETT has informed participating schools that further funding may not be available. Nevertheless, the project was designed from the inception to ensure that schools to develop self-sustaining agricultural projects. While we are open to restarting the initiative, this will depend on future budget availability. How is the agriculture in schools being funded? How long is the project for, and will other schools be funded as well? The Agri in School project has been ongoing for the last 2-3 years, and the hydroponics train-the-trainer program recently launched is planned to run for 1 year. No funding has been allocated in 2025 for the new or existing Agri School initiative due to budget constraints, and as noted, no additional schools will be funded under the current budget. And it's being funded, I guess, under the TWO projects. Is the GO project, oh sorry, yes, the GO project. That's the one that's being funded by. Is there funding available at EU level, and is this being looked into? Yes. We have been informed by counterparts in the Netherlands that EU level funding opportunities may exist, and the ministry is currently exploring the feasibility of accessing these funds, so both through the public and private sector channels. And the final question posed by MP Roseberg, is the minister looking into other options for funding for the agri-school project? Currently, there are no alternative funding options specifically targeted at the agri-school projects. However, we are actively examining ways to increase government revenues and consequently enhancing the agricultural budget to sustain key initiatives moving forward. In closing, Mr. Chairman, I wish to emphasize that food security is not and must not become a political debate. It is a national priority and a moral obligation. Ensuring our people have consistent access to fresh, healthy, and affordable food transcends party lines. It speaks to the very core of our duty as representatives of the people. As hypocrisy, I keep slipping on his name, but Hippocrates, a Greek physician and philosopher, once said, "Let food be thy medicine, and medicine be thy food." This timeless truth reminds us that what we put on our plates directly impacts our well-being, productivity, and resilience as a nation. If we are serious about building a healthier, more self-reliance in Maarten, we must begin by investing in the systems that feed our people. I want to take this opportunity to thank the members of Parliament who have expressed support and request quarterly updates. Today's presentation is only the beginning. This foundation is what we intend to implement. Many of the points discussed will be revisited with measurable progress reports. And furthermore, I plan to return to Parliament before the end of this parliamentary year, specifically following the summer recess, following the summer recess, to provide more details and updates where we stand and what lies ahead. I do understand, however, that these discussions may at times seem repetitive or drawn out, but I ask for your patience, your consistency, and your belief in a long-term sustainability of the country. And I also ask for support and suggestions, always open. So let us not lose sight of being of the bigger picture. What we build today together will shape the resilience and the self-reliance and the prosperity of St. Maarten tomorrow. So let us move forward, not as a divided voice, but as a united Parliament and government committed to feeding and empowering our people. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and once again for your attention.
Thank you, Minister, for your answering of the questions posed by the ministers. At this moment, members of Parliament, At this moment, I'd like to adjourn for a brief 3-minute break to allow the minister time to catch herself, as well as the members of Parliament time to get their questions together. So I will adjourn for 3 minutes. Good afternoon. We return, citizens of St. Maarten. As we now head over to the members of Parliament for further questions, I now give the floor to the first speaker, MP La Cruz. MP La Cruz, you have the floor.
A blessed afternoon, Mr. Chairman, the Griffier, Minister and her support staff, my fellow colleagues, and all those listening on social media. Mr. Chairman, I missed a couple answers to a couple questions that I asked, so I'm going to ask them again. It is the first question that the minister missed was if there was a possibility to set up a regional license for the fishermen, Sabre, Statia, Anguilla, because the minister mentioned that the other fishermen could sell their fish on St. Maarten, but St. Maarten couldn't do vice versa. I didn't get a reply on that question. And I asked the minister concerning the budget priorities. And after hearing the explanation from the Minister of Finance yesterday that no changes were made even after we discussed this meeting, then I am worried how we're going to get the projects done. I'm extremely worried. I know that there should be ways, one way or the other. There are things that we could prioritize when it comes to food. Like the minister just mentioned, it is important that we feed our people and no games are played in the process. So I still would like to see how and when we could get something done in that manner. Also, when it relates to the question concerning land, I mentioned to the minister that there were families, private families. I didn't hear anything about that. I heard about going to Vrami, but Vrami is government-owned land. And in our discussion, I understood from MP Webster Jansen that the company that I was referring to, that land already came back to government during the previous meeting, but then I heard that not. So I'm going to, after the meeting, I'll let the minister know which business I'm talking about. So if that plan is still in place. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, MP La Cruz. The next MP up is MP Veronica Jansen-Webster.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you again, Minister, for your elaborate answers. And I also would like to publicly thank the ETT department for all the work that they have done, as you have outlined all of the work that has been done and also what is slated to take place this year. And I just wanted to know, over a span of how many years, all that was noted that was done already for agriculture, how long has that department been busy with this? Because I see now, and also as you indicated, we are nearing, let's say, the end where we can have execution now. And so I wanted to know how long it took, because you can see all the preparation and all the planning in place by the department. So it's really excellent work. I just want to know how long it took to prepare. And then I also wanted to know if there will be a possibility for 1 or 2 local farmers to go along on the explorative trips, for instance, the one to Santo Domingo that's upcoming. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Jansen-Webster. I now give the floor over to MP Wescott-Williams. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and a good afternoon to you, a good afternoon to our support staff, and of course to the Minister and her support staff here. I want to thank, through you, Mr. Chairman, the Minister for the answers provided to questions asked by members of Parliament, including myself. Again, I took note, like I did in the first part of this meeting regarding the plans for a so-called ZBO to regulate, execute the policy projects in the area of agriculture, the ALF combination. And I still have my doubts about the choice of that body, that legal body, to execute many of the things that are in the policy. However, I know that is of a longer term. By the way, the minister indicated correctly that the idea is this particular structure will be in place in the last quarter of 2026 because that needs to be established by law to begin with. So I guess the discussion on it will be in that process. And I want to believe, I nearly would want to assume that going through the process to come to a ZBO for the purpose as outlined in the area of agriculture, etc., is going to change. I honestly believe that when we look closer at the instrument of a ZBO for this particular area, that I think it's going to, the thought process regarding a ZBO is going to change. That's my personal belief. Understanding where we are in the context of developing ZBOs. And remember that ZBOs actually are created, and there's a lot of, we are in a period now where creating ZBOs are being looked at very carefully because of the structure. Yes, they are more independent, but it's actually to carry out a service. And I get the impression that much more is expected in the field of agricultural development, etc., than just to have a body kind of taking over that particular aspect from government. But I'll leave the discussion because at some point we will get a draft law. And as I said before, I want to believe that before we get that far, the thinking regarding a ZBO for this particular purpose might change. But I say that to get to the question of, in the meantime, what is the structure going to be to guide and promote the matter of the ALF? We would recall that earlier or some time ago, the intention was to create that kind of a dedicated institution, a dedicated department, agency, whatever you want to call it, and looking at the long-term possibility of a ZBO under what will the promotion of the whole ALF policy and projections under what will that take place? So where would we be able to keep the finger on the pulse of the movements that have to take place in the context of ALF, ALF? There are a lot of things that have to happen. Again, we have very, very, if any, budget at all. So how could we see some of these things actually materializing is my question, because it's quite a plate full, the things that the ministry is anticipating and contemplating. So in between time, what part of the ministry will really get a good hold on the different steps and projects that need to be taken, on the collaboration that needs to take place, on following up to, for example, a mission to the Dominican Republic and other places, that some of those things can be followed up on. I also took note of the minister's concern, which she shares with members of parliament, including myself, regarding the invasive species. And I know for a fact that where St. Kitts, which has been mentioned by the minister, where they are now, they are trying to correct and undo a situation. We have tried by the 100,000 guilders that actually came because of a motion here in Parliament to deal with the invasive species, and then we were confronted with all kind of pushback. And my question is, the feeling might not be that it affects or they affect agriculture, but they do. They do. You know, and St. Kitts is nearly twice our size, and, you know, so they can manage it better, but it's a big, big problem in St. Kitts as well. St. Kitts had up boards on the road showing how they are getting to diminishing especially the monkeys, you know, to keep track and let people know, well, now we're down to this amount, but it is way out of hand there too. So, you know, so I don't know what exactly more we can learn from them than to understand that it is a threat. It is a threat to regular agriculture, to backyard farming. I mean, you name it. You name it. So, yeah, I still think we need to have a more direct discussion on where we can get funding for these things that need to happen. They just get worse, and not making available the money, not having it, then 6 months down the line, we're going to be even in a worse situation. A year down the line, a Wassara situation. So I'm sure my St. Maarten people understand that word, a worst situation, of course, but I think it hits home when I say a Wassara, because it just gets worse. I mean, all jokes aside, and it's a problem. It's really, really a problem. And my fear is that as we strive to improve things, the time that is passing is just making it a bigger problem for us, is my concern. And I bring it back. So in the meantime, what do we have in place? Who's going to push this wagon? Who is going to push this wagon until we get to the ideal thing of, which I don't think it will eventually become, a ZBO. But that's a very personal feeling in terms of the choice of the legal entity to manage ALF. Mr. Chairman, it's not really a question per se. It's just for the ministry and minister to think about, you know, and just maybe to answer. Well, in the meantime, this is where the focus will come from within the ministry. These are the persons, the organization, the unit, whatever it will be, where we can really see progress being made. That's it, Mr. Chairman. I thank you.
Thank you, MP Wescott-Williams. I now move over to MP York. MP York, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon to yourself, Griffier, the Minister and our support staff, honorable colleagues, and the viewing public. Minister, thank you for the answers. I only have a few clarification questions. As it pertains to the baseline study, the Minister, through you, Mr. Chairman, stated that was submitted in October. I would like to ask the Minister if she could help us out with the IS number. Well, we'll look at that afterwards. And then on to I would say the word of the meeting, ALF. The ALF agency, I think the Minister referenced that it has been in existence since 2022. Yeah. The policy has been there since 2022. And so my question would be, if the policy was there from 2022, as of which day has it been, or is it going to be active, the agency? So I know it might sound like a dumb question, but there's a reason why I'm asking it. Also, the reallocation of staff for the ALF agency, a reallocation of staff, that would be basically employees that are already employed in the ministry, but in the Minister answering, giving the answers to the questions, the Minister also referenced that the ministry is severely understaffed. So I would like to know how those two go together, reallocating staff in a ministry which is severely understaffed. So if the Minister can clarify that for me, please. Also, I asked a question pertaining to are there any revenue generating measures from the ministry that will be coming to either the 2025 budget or the thereafter 2026 budget that can be used towards eventually allocated towards agriculture? And the minister said in her answer that they are currently exploring avenues for revenue generating measures. But seeing that the 2025 budget will be here in a couple of weeks and the 2026 budget is already in the making and should be here about 2 or 3 months after that, if the minister to you, Mr. Chair, is still exploring avenues, will they be ready for the budget? That is my question. And which avenues are those? Exactly. Then in the question where I posed, how is the minister to you, Mr. Chairman, going to be working with the Minister of Romy as it pertains to the competing sectors, be it tourism, be it housing, be it agriculture, as it pertains to land allocation. In the answer, the minister said that the minister requested an overview of government-owned land to see what the options are. And that was exactly what I was kind of scared about, because it would seem that it's more like, hey, this is the overview. Minister, what you got planned for this spot, that spot, that spot, I would like to have it for agriculture. It would seem that way. I don't know if the minister have a plan, but I was more looking to a more holistic plan of how is the minister going to work with the Vromy minister as it pertains to what the Vromy minister is currently working on, be it zoning, right? Because if we're still just picking and choosing land like how it used to be in the old days, while the minister is trying to zone and trying to do something different now, that's actually counterproductive of where this administration is trying to go. So if the minister can clarify that point for me. Also, that the minister clarified that 90%, and she also said it in her presentation, 90%, averaging 90% of the funds thus far for the agency or for what they're doing right now is coming from international funding. I would like an overview of those funds and how they are being spent or to be allocated. Also, the question pertaining to disaster management, the minister said she will be looking into that. And my question about that would be, why hasn't that been looked into as yet, seeing that we live in a hurricane belt? And that that will be it for now, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, MP York, for those questions. I now look to, I see no more MPs which wish to speak. I now look to the minister of how much time she would need. The minister has indicated that she would only need 10 minutes to confer with her team and come back with the answers. So I will adjourn this meeting for 10 minutes. This meeting is adjourned for 10 minutes. Good afternoon once again. Members of Parliament, the Minister of TIAT and her support staff, and the viewing public. The Minister has returned to answer the questions that were posed by the members of Parliament. Minister, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just quickly before I answer some of the questions, just to be on the, to be clear, most of what I presented today, well, most of it, most of it is mainly high level. So the how is still being, we're still being researched. So most questions that you ask, I can't give a pertinent answer because, of course, it's policies we're trying to tweak. We know we have a vision, and when you have a vision, now is how you're going to execute it. So some of the questions I might not be able to answer as they are still under discussions and research. So let's start with MP La Cruz. Through you, Mr. Chairman, is there a possibility to set up a regional license for fishermen Saba, Statia, and Anguilla? This can naturally be discussed with other regional counterparts, but before doing such, we must get our own house, so to speak, in order. So currently, the committee that legally should be responsible for this is the fishery on fisheries. Is not established, the fisheries committee. So once they are established, that's the mechanism we're going to use to work on that. So yes, indeed, it can be done, but through that committee. The budget priorities and hearing, no changes were made and worried on how the budget will be executed. But as mentioned previously through you, Mr. Chairman, the current ongoing projects have been funded by either the budget 2024, international funding, such as Green Overseas Program and Teweo Lands Packet E6. Like all of them are being funded. So that's how they can still go on, keep going, provided actually budget 2025 is passed, the rest will continue moving forward, progressing. MP La Cruz asks when it relates to the questions concerning the land, he mentioned that there are private families that want to know if that is still in place. I do believe what the MP is referring to, but for now, I would rather discuss this on the side because it's not concrete, and I don't want to mention the family name, but I do understand where the MP is going to with this question, and I do understand MP Jansen's question as well, clearly now. Then I move on to MP Jansen. Over a span of many years, all that was noted for agriculture, how long has the ETT department been busy with the preparation? And she also commended the ETT department for their work. Over a span of many years, various development in agriculture has been noted. The preparation for the agriculture policy by ETT began during COVID-19. However, it is important to also highlight that the approval of the policy was not straightforward and spanned the tenure of 3 different ministers. So the policy was ultimately approved in quarter of 2022, and only after that approval did the operationalization of the policy recommended begin. So notably, support for the hydroponics trainer project was launched in the 4th quarter of 2023, and the Teweo projects came on stream in 2023 and continues to date. Is there a possibility for local farmers to go on the exploratory trip to DR? Yes, there is a possibility, and they can contact, as stated, I think I mentioned it in press briefing this week, that they can contact our SG, Miguel De Weaver, for details via email. His email is miguel.deweaver@stmartingov.org. However, for upcoming DC Alpha conferences in May that will be held in Bonaire, 2 farmers and 1 fisherman has been invited and will be attending that conference. So that's, we are going to continue doing that because we did it once with the Sinkis, and we're going to be doing that in Bonaire as well. Then we're going to now move over to questions posed by MP Wescott-Williams. What is the structure going to be to promote the guide the ALF? So the structure to promote the ALF is already in motion. Every time I say ALF, I think of that character, but I'm sorry. Old school. Since the launch of the policy, efforts have focused in generating interest in the industry improving access to information and helping individuals understand the relevant rules and regulations. So the ALF will serve as a formal body to guide, support, and eventually take ownership of these ongoing efforts, ensuring continuity, structure, and industry-led development moving forward. Under what and where TIAT will be able to keep their fingers on the pulse for ALF. The ministry will be able to keep its finger on the pulse through the policy and inspection department. Currently, both departments are executing work with that the ALF agency will be expected to do. Therefore, the oversight role will be more possible. How could we see some of the things materialize given the little budget? The ministry will continue to access all funding opportunities in lieu of not having funds at this time, but do note that the project mentioned are already ongoing and have been funded. So the ministry's focus now is to ensure that we can secure these efforts in 2026 with these necessary, where necessary via local and international means. So everything we're looking at is funding, and it's there. It's there. The opportunities are there, so we're grabbing it for the country, well, making sure that we can get support. So who is going to push the wagon of addressing the invasive species and threaten our that are threatening our agriculture? So the Ministry of TIAT is actually actively gathering information and studying how other territories are addressing similar challenges. So for instance, in Sint, believe it or not, they have methods to combat this. They have this black matting that they're using alongside their crops that turns very, very hot, so no monkeys that come in and touch their crops. They are also using electronic fencing, and one of the most craziest scarecrow tactics they're using is literally killing the monkeys and hanging them on the trees as scarecrow to say that you come here, this is what's going to happen to you. On the front side, on the other hand, we also heard of a legislation that's being developed to allow licensed gun members to shoot monkeys and report their activities by presenting them to their ALF agency. And then, yes, I think MP Wescott-Williams also mentioned that she believes that it could not, maybe it could evolve and not become an agency, and she's right, because it's something that it's an idea we have, we're seeking funding for it, and the professionals can one day decide that no, an agency is not the correct method. This, maybe having a department might be one, but important is that we started requesting funding to help realize our own actual agricultural department. What it will end up being is up to the professionals. So MP Wescott may have a point. It could not, maybe it could, in the end, the professionals will say maybe an agency mightn't work, maybe a standalone department within the government, within TIAT works better. So it's up to, of course, the professionals. And then we have questions posed by MP York. As of which day will the agency be active? As mentioned in my presentation, twice. This will be within 18 to 24 months. However, we aim to establish it by Q4 2026. How does relocating HR within the ministry to the ALF agency make a difference? It will not only concern relocation of resources, but additional skilled staff will be needed to be sourced. So all of this, like I said, we know we want an agency, we know we're going to need more staff, and we know we need fundings. And this is all the research that we're being done through you, Mr. Chairman. So, next question, are there any revenue generating avenues for agriculture, and which are they, and will they be ready for the upcoming budget? We have not concretely identified the revenue generating component that but it will come directly for agriculture. However, we are exploring other revenue generating initiatives that ministry that has identified. I may let's try to have some hopefully for budget 2026, but we're still exploring how and where we can receive the revenues. How will the minister be working with the Ministry of RAMI with regards to land? The ministry isn't working with the Ministry of RAMI to identify the government land, but more so ensuring that the relevant areas are soon to allow for agriculture to take place. So I mentioned again in my I think twice in my presentation today that we sent a letter to the Ministry of RAMI asking them to provide us with a list of businesses or properties that are available for agriculture, and once that is established, we can build a policy around that, a policy around getting the said land, said property. The MP also would like an overview of the projects and its currently being funded, and that I mentioned that with 90% of them being funded. So agri loans approximately right now is $300,000 funded by TWO. The agri-research is 300,000 guilders funding by TWO. The hydroponic trainer is 90,000 euros funded by the GO project, EU project. And the ALF agency, what we're negotiating for right now is $600,000 to be approved and funded by TWO. Why hasn't disaster management being looked into? It's not that I mentioned that it's not being looked into, but I mentioned in my answers that we are taking all of that into consideration when we realize the ALF agency. With that, Mr. Chairman, I have come to the end of the questions, and that's it.
Thank you, Minister, for your response. I see MP York would like the floor. MP York, you have the floor.
Just a real quick one, Mr. Chairman. Pertaining to the overview of funds, international funds for the projects, would it be possible just to get that in writing? Just an overview. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, MP York. Minister?
I was just here telling through you, Mr. Chairman, that I said we should put it in writing. So it will be put in writing, not a problem. Just nudge me, and then we'll make sure get it done. Hopefully by next week. I think we have some more projects that we can even add to that we may have missed. So we'll make sure to have more an extensive list through you, Mr. Chairman, for the MP in writing next week. Yeah.
Thank you, Minister. I now look and see that there are no more MPs wishing to respond. Minister, I would like to thank you for your presentation on Monday, you coming to answer the questions here today. And I would just like to note that I could appreciate the ministry's ambitious plans. And with ambitious plans, you won't always have the answers. And what's good about that is you're being very transparent in such. And I received a lot of positive feedback via text, via online messages of the population who has expertise in the field, giving their opinions and their options and different productive ideas, which is always good because developing a new industry like this is going to take members of parliament, it's going to take the ministry, it's going to take also the citizens of the country who has the expertise to come forward and share those expertise. So I believe that this conversation was very fruitful. This committee will definitely be looking forward to your updates and being proactive and reaching out to the ministry to receive updates and if anything that the ministry can do, the members of parliament, to assist with legislation. I know you said that you will be back before the end of the summer to give an update after the summer. I stand corrected, after the summer. Before the end of the parliamentary year, correct. And either way, we thank you for coming. With that being said, I would like to thank the Honorable Minister of Tourism, Economic Affairs, Transport, and Telecommunication, Ms. Grisha Heiliger Maarten, and her support staff for their presence here today and for providing the necessary information. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of this meeting. I thank you all for your participation, and I hereby close this meeting. Meeting closed.